spoke to David Dayen on Friday. In part, we were talking about the UAW strike. And just before we went on air, Joe Biden spoke at the White House on Friday and addressed the UAW's decision for some of its members to go on strike. Here is that clip.
Auto companies have seen record profits, including the last few years, because of the extraordinary skill and sacrifices of the UAW workers. But those record profits have not been shared fairly, in my view, with those workers. Just as the Treasury Department has released a report pointing out that the most comprehensive report ever dealing with how unions are good for both union workers and non-union workers and the overall economy. Unions raise workers' wages, they said, incomes, increase home ownership, increase retirement savings, increase access to critical benefits like sick leave and child care, and reduce inequality, all of which strengthen our economy for all workers. That's because unions raise standards across the workplaces and entire industries, pushing up wages and strengthening benefits for everyone. That's why strong unions are critical to a growing economy and growing from the middle out, the bottom up, not the top down. That's especially true as we transition to a clean energy future, which we're in the process of doing.
So there you have it. There were reports that Biden had spoke to Fain and was trying to protect some of those EV plants, and that is in some of what may be behind the selected car manufacturers, but we shall see. They were back at the table yesterday. Stocks, the car manufacturers' stocks have dropped, which of course is the most important thing in the world to them. They care about nothing else.
Well, that's how they're. That's how that is. Who's the female executive? One of the big three.
Mary.
Yeah. But she was.
Mary Barra.
Yeah, doing a lot of kind of smoke and mirrors about her compensation.
Our performance is
it's all
very
performance,
good,
aka stock.
Our stock performance, right? Not our necessarily the quality of our cars. Not necessarily. I mean, there's a million other ways in which you could measure the performance of a corporation. In a week or two, we were scheduled to have him on next Monday, but it's Yom Kippur. Bill Lazonic will be on. And if you go back and listen to any of the interviews I've done with Bill Lazonic over the years, he outlines essentially how a combination of the rollback on allowing stock buybacks by the Reagan administration, something that was illegal prior to then just became a practice. The combination of the dropping the capital gains tax, significantly lower wage taxes, and a Clinton-era change in the tax code that also made it more beneficial to pay executives through stocks, basically created a misaligned incentive between those people who see the corporation as functioning within the context of a community for the function of the people who work there as well as the shareholders, to something that is basically just an enterprise that is like a side bet.
It's wild.
It's a cottage industry where the C-suite and the board of directors operate in what's their best interests, and sometimes that aligns with what's in best interest of the corporation, but not necessarily.
We're going to take this profit and instead of, giving it to research and development or our workers, we're going to buy stocks.
Enrich ourselves.
To billions of dollars, driving up our stock price.
It also artificially...
It's crazy.
The secondary part is that it artificially inflates the stock price as well, and that also makes it so that the C-suite, the executives, are even further untethered from the material production of these goods on the floor, because it's just we're talking about two different ball games at this point. I just also want to point out that Biden saying that, we should note that Sean Fain has still, and the UAW, withheld their endorsement of Biden in 2024, and it's just something to monitor, that they're making clear that they want more from him in exchange for that endorsement. I think it's a good move.
Yeah, Fain had a statement saying, appreciate the words with regard to like record profit should be a record contract, but also like make it clear that we've been at the table and it's been the management that has not been at the table.
Broken promises ever since the crash.
Here's a second clip from Biden.
But I also believe the contract agreement must lead to a vibrant Made in America future that promotes good, strong middle-class jobs that workers can raise a family on. Where the UAW remains at the heart of our auto economy and where the big three companies continue to lead in innovation, excellence, quality, and leadership. Last night, after negotiations broke down, the UAW announced a targeted strike at a few big three auto plants. Let's be clear. No one wants a strike. Say it again. No one wants a strike. But I respect workers' right to use their options under the collective bargaining system. And I understand the workers' frustration. Over generations, auto workers sacrificed so much to keep the industry alive and strong, especially through the economic crisis and the pandemic. Workers deserve a fair share of the benefits they help create for an enterprise. I do appreciate that the parties have been working round the clock. And when I first called them at the very first day of the negotiations, I said, please stay at the table as long as you can to try to work this out. And they've been around the clock, and the companies have made some significant offers. But I believe they should go further to ensure record corporate profits mean record contracts for the UAW. Let me say that again. Record corporate profits, which they have, should be shared by record contracts for the UAW.
Good stuff. International Socialist says, or I should say custodial artist on the IM says, how much do you think, if anything, Biden learned from the backlash on the rail strike? I think there was some of that. But the rail strike, fundamentally different sort of calculation because of the statutory involvement of the United States with railway workers and with some flights too, I think, in terms of aviation. So it's a different ball game, but nevertheless, look, I don't know how you break down the percentage, but in terms of workers, there's obviously a lot more workers who are going to be touched by this UAW strike than railways. That said, obviously the transportation of the railways also has to do with basically the safety of a countless number of communities around the country, and those those business practices are just horrible. But there is no doubt that this administration is the best on labor that we've had. I mean, more or less in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Certainly better than the Clinton administration, certainly better than the Obama administration. Those aren't necessarily the highest bars, but it's better than those two, and by far, obviously, better than Reagan, who essentially ushered in this. I mean, Jimmy Carter had some issues with unions as well. He was not terribly a friend of unions. But Ronald Reagan really ushered in this era in firing the air traffic controllers. And that's where we've been. And this is a turnaround. It is, we have talked to numerous labor leaders, from the Amazon strikes to the, Starbucks. And it makes a difference when the president comes out and is supportive. It makes a difference because just in terms of maintaining the solidarity of the union and the people who are on the picket line. So it's helpful, and that's all you need.